Dearest gentle listeners, you are listening to the Ladies Bridgerton, the talk of the ton. We are your effervescent host, your neighbourhood-friendly Kiwi, Tash from Middle-earth, New Zealand.
And Patty, Regency romance enthusiast, currently writing her high vibe and love Dara.
Settle down onto your favourite settee as we delve into the lives of the elite and illustrious ladies, lords, and royalty of the ton. This Bridgerton podcast is two friends talking romance, symbolism, Easter eggs, and deep diving into the connections of our favourite characters. We cover both book, TV series, and notable social media, and therefore will contain spoilers.
Tangent Squad. Today, we sew up the loose ends of episode 4 by talking Mondrick, the Lord Squad, and the Queen's Ball. This will probably be a 2, maybe 3-parter, according to Tash the Kiwi.
I was going to say, I saw 2-parter, and I'm like,
We discuss recently revealed script cuts that the Ladies Bridgerton approve of, but also illustrate how Colin does not feel safe in the company of the Lord Squad. We have a continuity error possibly to discuss, as well as insight into whether Lord Debling is playing a trick for the Lord Squad, or do we add to his stacking symptoms of being a not nice guy?
Right, I'll play devil's advocate on both sides.
They're just a few observations I had today.
Now we must make haste into today's episode, which is a miracle because the last few episodes, because we've either been about to go on holidays or just coming back from holidays, and our intros before we get to the must make haste have been just shy of 20 minutes long in true Tangent Queen fashion. But as I have posted into our Ladies Bridgerton Facebook page, for those who aren't on our Facebook page, you do not know yet that we are going to be having a surprise guest host on our podcast next week. We're going to record it next week. Patty, do we reveal now so that, because they were here on Sunday, so they get a 1 week's notice of who it's going to be? Or do you think we just surprise
No, I think
them?
we announce it here. And then we tell them to go listen to the pod for the announcement.
Okay.
I'm so excited. So let's hold on. Let's give it some drama. Let's talk it up. How did this come about, Tosh?
So even before I started my own Bridgerton podcast, which then eventually was joined by Patty, I say eventually, but even before that, I
was there at the inception of your podcast. I'll have you know, we were just doing separate things.
So even before I started a Bridgerton podcast, I had followed this lovely lady, a Samoan queen who lives over in America, just to give a few little hints. And she is a major Bridgerton creator, probably actually the largest Bridgerton creator who doesn't have a podcast.
Yes, because I followed her also before I started anything.
Who is over on TikTok and on Instagram. And I know that I would say that majority, if not all of our subscribers and listeners follow her because she is posted to the main Bridgerton page pretty much on the daily with her videos.
Oh, I know they do because I specifically asked, and it cracks me up that we posted something for them to guess and none of them have guessed. And just a few days ago, I was like, so who knows this person?
Because we were talking about her kite theory that she has recently done a TikTok about, which is obviously to do with season 4.
Shared it. Yeah, I shared it from TikTok into our Tangent Queens thing because she practices the art of the reach just like we do. And we stan a good reacher.
Oh,
we love a good reacher.
We love a good stretch, and pull. The yoga we practice. We partake in the art of the yoga.
I wasn't thinking yoga.
The stretch and pull.
It's my turn to have the juvenile sense of humor.
You're doing better than me. To be honest, I was thinking like bend and snap and bend and snap.
I wasn't.
I know you weren't. I've had my fill, pun intended, so I'm good.
No, I'm still in a dozen. Dry spell. A long one too. That's okay.
My dry spells are never dry. It's fine. It's not my fault. My husband's cute. It's not my fault. So for those who have not put C, B, A, Q, and J together, because obviously we are the Tangent Queens, nothing with us is ever linear. We will officially next week be recording with the, drum roll please, Ainsley Broom.
Woohoo!
And I
So
am
excited.
so excited. I messaged her over on Instagram just after she posted the kite theory, and I thought, absolutely long shot. She's a really busy girl. Like
Yeah.
she is the first person to post any Bridgerton news ever. Like anytime I get a notification saying that any of the cast have like not even just our Luke Newton and
Mm-mm.
and Nicola Coughlin, like anytime that like Bessie or like Jessica Madsen, anyone, even if it's Tom Verica, like anyone who posts ever on any of the platforms, I will
Yeah.
get the
She's
notification.
on it.
I will get the notification pop up on my phone. I will open it up and she has already commented on that post. And I'm like, girl, how are you so quick? You got quick fingers.
Yeah. And I mean, we've shared her content back and forth because we don't follow a lot of Bridgerton content. We want our ideas to be original. We want to know, and I mean, a lot of people come up with the same ideas or perspectives on something, and that's fine. But we want to know that we're not, because we forget which one of us said something. So we we don't want to accidentally say something that we don't give credit to the
Yeah.
people who originated that idea. So we follow very few people. Like I said, I follow Ainsley Broom, I follow Ash on TikTok, and then I'm in the Bridgerton group. So if somebody shares something into there, I'll usually just say I saw it online, but I try and name the
Yeah.
creator specifically.
Well, that's the thing is if because I literally only follow Ainsley Room, you follow Ash and you just share it through to me. And then if the girls are over at the other Bridgerton podcast, my brain is
What about
What thank you. Any of the girls over at What Above, if they post any of the episode information that got cut, Kay usually informs us of that, but obviously we give props where they're due.
Well, the info for today I got off of Reddit. One of them posts to Reddit, and it was in our subreddit for Pollen, I think.
What Above is 5 girls?
4.
Okay, that's a lot. We like, can you imagine us? And we're gonna have to behave ourselves.
And What a Barb, I like your podcast. Like I've listened to a little bit to gain these your insights into the scripting thing. Yeah, I've listened to like the beginnings of a couple of episodes. And it's not that I don't like your content. I don't want to be influenced in a way that it affects my content. And then somebody goes, "Hey, wait a minute, that was my idea."
Yeah.
So
phenomenal job. We think that they do a fantastic job. And
the more
content
compete. There is out there for Bridgerton. I mean, we're one of those shows, and I have a lot of fandoms that do this. Like Outlander is ridiculous for how long it takes between seasons, to the fact that they call it Droughtlander in between seasons. So like Bridgerton is the same way. And I just saw a thing posted today that they finished filming season 2 in like November of 2021 and it released March of 2022. That's how quickly season 2 was edited and released. And then we had to wait a year and 2 months for only the first half of season 3.
I think
because remember, it didn't finish until the end of February.
I think it's
in 2023.
We lost our champion who knew how things work, Chris Van Dusen.
Well, and Jess Brownell was new as a showrunner. Like that was very new job for her. And I think we may see a quicker turnaround for season 4, but I think they're tentatively putting it where they are because they don't exactly have all of the decision making here. Netflix decides things too and stuff like that. So the release date is probably a mutual agreement, and it's not just on Shondaland and Jess Brownell and whatever. So I'm hoping it's not August of 2026. But like, come on now.
Well, I was seeing more May, but like at the same time, it also gives us time to save for you to come over to get to me.
Right. Or me to buy a ticket and make the payments. Yes. Darn drunk. You can't drive to New Zealand from Ohio.
I mean, you can, but you might need some serious engineering skills to like change your car into a boat.
Right, I'd be driving in the ocean.
I mean, they do have some episodes of Top Gear about that.
Well, and I'm not going through the Northwest Passage. Just not going to do it. So it's going to cost me a pretty penny to get there. But I hope and like manifesting, I am in alignment. I am in alignment with the money to get me to New Zealand for season 4.
All right, I'm going to I'm gonna say it again because I think that I said it and then I was like, oh, that's right, we have major news to drop. So now we must make haste into today's episode. Soz for the confusion there. Okie dokie dokie dokie. I love how I was like, oh, we're so good. We got to the must make haste in like 3 minutes flat. Oh, wait, it's 10. Just kidding.
But at least it's not 20. We
I
cut
know.
it in half.
And to be fair, it is important Bridgerton news that our listeners needed to hear about. Okay, so today we are studying up for those. I am being much better now, and I have pre-put in my timestamp so you can follow along with I mean, our brains aren't linear, but we'll do our best.
Yeah.
So this episode should actually be fairly linear though, because we are pretty much exclusively talking about the scenes at Mondrick's bar and then the Queen's Ball. So there is
And a little Lord Squad.
but that's at Mondrick's bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see those as two different scenes because it's two
They
different.
They are, but I'm saying
yeah.
it goes
They're
from
at the
one
same place,
into the
yeah.
one into the other. It just literally pans across the room as opposed to cutting and yeah. Where we left off last episode was Lord Cowper dismissing Eloise so that he could braid his daughter. She's not allowed to be seen with that Bridgerton girl anymore. And I said, clearly Eloise's soiled reputation from last season is still following her. And I thought it was kind of interesting.
And I think they think they're not having an appropriate relationship.
Yes, but
because she showed up at calling hour.
But what I found interesting is that it cuts from Eloise's soiled relationship straight over to the Mondricks, who are sort of establishing their standing in society still. And what I also found interesting is that it cuts from one very, very dreary and dark scene to another. And I kind of wonder whether, like, I know that Mondrick's bar is probably set that way because it's meant to be like not mood lighting per se, but it's meant to be like a relaxing,
men's club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's the lighting at? I'm blind. I'm 33 years old. I'm blind. So my friends come to my house who are all millennials, and apparently millennials are not allowed to have overhead lighting. Apparently that is a frowned upon sin as far as being a millennial. And I'm like, girl, I have an eye disease. My eye does not retract properly to allow light in. I need all the light I can get. That is why I'm a sunflower. I search out the light. Give me all the lights. Thankfully, that is why I married an electrician, because I have so much bright lighting in my house that I could fry an egg, okay? Like, I need all the lighting over here. And all my friends are like, what is happening? It is too bright. And I'm like, bask in my sunshine. Enjoy it.
Welcome to the greenhouse.
It's basically it. But the Mondrick's bar is incredibly dark, and it's actually a really, really similar color palette to the Cowper family mausoleum.
Well, and similarly, he's having money trouble, and he's keeping the club separate from the estate, which shows you how responsible he is, I think, because if we look at like Lord Featherington, he didn't even separate the girls' dowries from the estate money. He started using all that to gamble. So it gives you a big idea into Mondrick's character and his virtue, but he only has lighting where he needs to have it. So there's candles on the table, or it's only lit at the tables that are occupied. It's only lit at the bar. So he's only using enough lighting to do the barest of business. And what I find amazing here, if you listen to the conversation between him and Alice, he is saying, I cannot go out into society until this is figured out. I cannot afford a bartender, maybe a new decorator or cook. So he can afford a decorator or cook, but he cannot afford a bartender. But here's the thing. He is upset that these accounts have been closed and these people are no longer coming to his bar. Mm-hmm. But he grew the club through putting himself out there. Like, he was at the wedding of Anthony and Edwina. Like, he was walking around talking to people. He was amidst the group of men talking about the mines, remember?
Uh-oh.
So
I just knocked over my entire kit. Trying to get a blankie.
No.
Oh no. There's like thousands of needles. That's fine. That looks like someone else's problem.
It's a future Tosh problem.
Let's keep someone
talking.
Else.
Yeah. So I find it interesting that his pride is holding on to this club to the point that he's not even doing the thing that brought him business in the first place, which going out into society and talking up his club. So he is, in effect, like, he's upset that their society's shunning him ultimately, but he's also shunning them, and they're going to feel that.
Yes.
So it's a kind of like a catch-22, six one way, half a dozen the other. He's making it worse due to his pride.
Yeah. Well,
His pride is just clutching it with
in my notes,
everything he's got.
Will states that 2/3 of the lords have closed their accounts and he cannot afford to bring in an outside bartender. But it's funny that Will can definitely afford to bring in an outside bartender, but clearly he does not consider the money of his sons or the estates to be his or a stable income. So instead, he is stuck in his provider mode because it's all he's ever known. He cannot accept using money that he did not earn, which is sort of funny considering that how he came about the money for the bar in the first place was not exactly through the most of honest
Was
of
not
means.
scrupulous, yeah.
And Will is kind of musing different ways to bring customers back into the establishment. And instead of telling him he is wrong and despite the fact that she doesn't actually agree with him, Alice instead is being a supportive wife who says, I'm sure the answers will come to you. And it sort of reminded me
Because
of,
he's saying the answers out loud himself
yeah,
already. He's just not accepting them, yeah.
which sort of reminded me of Benedict's previous encounter with the Sphinx. Maybe the metaphor was also to be applied to more than just him in that episode, as the Sphinx's moral of the story is that the answers lie within us. But
Right.
Alice wasn't telling him to close the bar or to get new staff or to change anything. She was just allowing him the time and space to kind of come to his own natural conclusions. A wee bit kinder than the Sphinx would have been, who would just kill you for the incorrect answer.
And again, side stories play into the main.
Yeah.
We see that we know that Colin and Penelope are going to have this very similar of a relationship because
Yes.
Penelope does the same thing. Penelope lets Colin be mad and lets him work through all that on his own. She doesn't try and manipulate, change, defend herself, anything like that. She lets him come to his conclusions on his own. And so we can see the kind of supportive foundation that they're building now because the Mondricks have been together for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, Nikki is what, 11, 8, 10?
I would say he's probably 10 or 11.
I think because if people are musing that he's a potential suitor, he looks to be around maybe a few years just younger than Gregory.
Well, and Hyacinth is a little over a year younger than Gregory.
Well, he looks younger than Hyacinth even. And Hyacinth
Yeah,
is
I think he looked a couple of years younger than Hyacinth.
Hyacinth's about 12 at this point, I think.
11, 12. If we follow the timeline, technically she's 11, but it could be between 11 and 12 because I don't think we've established her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because she was born obviously just after Edmund died, so 11 years old. And I think he's a few years younger. So we'll say roughly that Will and Alice have been together for about 10 years,
Yeah.
But despite their previous, I love that coming into the bar, that despite their previous disagreement, that Alice approaches Will all smiles and charm and is asking him to attend tonight's dinner with her. She completely wipes away the bad mood of the day before. Well, not that it was a bad mood per se, but she can tell that he's really feeling it right now. And despite the fact that she has her own needs, and it's probably actually really intimidating going to a ball full of, as Benedict would say, vicious mamas.
Well, that's what she said. She told Danbury, she goes, thank you for coming with me or allowing me to come with you because I didn't want to miss another one.
Yes.
She knows how important it is to be seen in society, but she didn't want to come alone because that would be talked about, right? If she came alone.
Well, and I do have notes on that as she is watching the ballet play out. So I will talk about that when we get there. But we've got obviously
because I have some things too.
Yeah, because obviously, I really zoomed in on everyone's expressions through watching the ballet. But we've got Lord Squad to get through now. And that's your notes, Patty. So take it away.
Well, there's a couple of things I want to take note on. So, the first thing again is how little we know about Fife, and we know a lot, but we know a little. And we know how manipulative he is. Because if you follow the pattern around the table, they're telling their tall tales, starting with Stanton, and then moving clockwise to Wilding, much like playing a card game, you move to the person, usually to the right, but this would have been to the left. But it was clockwise motion. And when it gets to Fife, instead of Fife telling a story of his own, and I also get the feeling here, because, Fife just looks a little bit older than these gentlemen. Fife is hanging out with younger Lord, in my opinion. But he totally bypasses himself and he deflects onto Colin.
Isn't that always a type though? The kind of men who refuse to acknowledge growing up. And so they always find either younger friends or younger girlfriends, because as the girlfriends get older and they mature and they realize the bullshit of that older male, they think, oh, okay, this one's outgrown me. She's gotten too mature. Not looking at you, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Well, and they tend to seek somebody younger because
who will look up to them and think that they are
they want to be idolized. Yeah. They want to be idolized. But so he, instead of giving a story of his own, which it would have been his turn if you're looking at the way they're moving around the table, he deflects onto Colin, and he does it, and he's so condescending and patronizing to Colin, and Colin is like not wanting to have this conversation at all. But I think that's an insight we need to see into Fife, because there's some other things that play out later that and if you've been following the Ladies Bridgerton for from the beginning, roughly about a month in, I came up with this wild theory that Lord Fife and the Lord Squad created the whole Lord Debling pursuing Penelope thing as a ruse to get Colin to come out of hiding in terms of his feelings for Penelope. Like, he would have to announce his feelings because of Lord Debling, because there's actual competition. And, there's evidence to back this up at Danbury's ball. And I talk about more of it later when we get into the Queen's Ball. But I think it's important to note here that Fife's sole reason for being in society is to keep hidden whatever secrets he has to keep hidden, right? And two, he seriously just wants to mess with the Bridgerton. Like, he's messing with Colin here. And as we segue into the cut scenes, yes, Miss Kiwi.
Don't forget that we also have the theory that Fife may not be entirely truthful about where his affections lie.
Yeah, and that's why I said his secrets he wants to keep secret.
Yes. So we kind of have a little bit of a theory that maybe, and that's also another reason why Fife isn't spilling his secrets to the ton, because he could be of the Paul Suarez and
Randalls of the bunch.
Oh, not Weatherby and
Weatherby, Granville,
kind of variety.
Yes, we were thinking something along those lines, because the only time, I mean, we do know he was in a closet with Miss Goring, but we don't know exactly what happened in there. Now, the ladies from the What a Bar podcast posted again. I saw this in Reddit. There were some cut dialogue from this very scene for episode 4. And honestly, this was good edited, getting rid of this stuff, because one, we've already talked for a long time about how Jess Brownells publicly said she didn't know how to write Colin. She struggled with writing Colin, and she actually did a lot of the rewrites because she went and saw Luke Newton in The Shape of Things and got a better idea of his acting abilities, because Colin was really mostly background character, and he was the sarcastic, quipping humor of the first 2 seasons, right? So, but she admitted she struggled with writing him as a character. So I think some of that plays into that. And I think that he did come off a bit too pure and innocent. And I think that what he says at the end of season 2, and like him having that low self-esteem, was necessary for them to make him look like he's also an outcast and a wallflower in season 3. But this scene, I think, really plays into my theory that what he said at the end of season 2 was not true. It was just what he was saying for that group of people, because they're not safe. He doesn't feel like they're safe.
Yeah.
And so some of the cut dialogue was him pandering to the Lord Squad. So like, they're doing their stories and it falls on him, and he says, well, you heard my story about the Contessa, and they're like, yes, but we want more details. And he kind of like puts himself down in a way to pander to them, but not have to give away too much information.
The funny thing is like, okay, we've heard the Contessa story, I think 3 or 4 times over the last 4 episodes. And
it's very minimal information.
But if you hear what information he does give in that time period, it's actually not all that much less than I met this great girl in the Balkans and my bear leader. I was like, what does that mean? Does that mean a whole bunch of bears? Because I mean, bear is a gay terminology. And so when he said my bear leader, I'm like, oh, tell me more about this bear leader you've been
Tell me more, yeah.
traveling all over Europe with. And he goes, my bear leader looked the other way while we enjoyed each other's company all over the peninsula.
Peninsula.
I think that was the line, or very, very similar to that. And I'm like,
well, it kind of reminds me, okay, so imagine this. This scene reminds me of something, and I hope you've seen this, because half the time when I say if you've ever seen this and you're like, but I haven't seen that.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm just a girl.
So she swam by me. She got a cramp. He swam by me. Got my suit damp. You know, two people telling a story, and one is definitely telling tall tales. She got friendly down in the sand. Tell me more. Tell me more. Like, does he have a car?
Okay,
tell me more. Tell me.
Of course, it's just I haven't
From
actually
Greece.
watched. I haven't watched Greece.
Colin and the boys are giving me that vibe of they're telling tall tales of things that didn't exactly happen.
You know what? So I was watching a clip the other day of Jonathan Bailey as Fiyero, and I was like, oh my God, he would make a perfect Danny from Greece. If they did a remake,
Zuko.
I desperately want.
I think Colin would. I think Luke Newton would make a great Danny Zuko as well.
Well, I mean, yeah, either one of them. But honestly, I think that because Danny's quite femme in a way, and I think that Jonathan Bailey pulls it off so well. But the only reason that he may not do that kind of role is he may not want to be typecast, because it's quite a similar-ish role to, I mean, I haven't seen Wicked yet, but from what I have seen,
I could see how that would be similar to Fiyero, yeah.
Because he's kind of a little bit femme, a little bit like the it boy, but also good at song and dance. It's just similar-ish vibes.
He's the it boy, and he is concerned with his image. Like,
I think that Luke Newton is a little bit more reserved than Jonathan Bailey, and I think Jonathan Bailey plays the arrogant character quite well, even though you can tell in his actual life he is incredibly humble and funny and sweet, but he plays an arrogant character very well. As we've seen in season 1, when he talks to Sienna, I could have literally just smacked his head against a wall a few too many times.
But yeah, so this whole scene just reminds me of that song from Greece, and the boys are kind of playing it up a little bit. And I think Colin is using his writing skills, his imagination, to embellish a story that probably was just he met someone and they walked around a room and they enjoyed each other's conversation. But knowing this person was never going to turn up again, I think he created
I think the Contessa was more, because remember he has said, Luke Newton has said that the ring that he is wearing was gifted to him by the Contessa. I think it was a little bit more like the relationship
he created a backstory, which that kind of thing, gifts can happen. Gifts can be given without a lot of.
I think it's more of the Catherine de Bourgh kind of a relationship, or maybe even possibly a Lady Tilly, who it's an older widow who may have had affections for Colin, but knew that they were never going to be anything. They may have been some sort of education, but I don't think it was any sort of. I think both of them knew that it was more of a mentorship than a relationship.
Yeah, and his one journal, the one that Penn sort of reads, he reads a part of it. There's more to that journal, and that plays into what he's writing later when he's copying his journals for the novel.
Yeah.
And he's writing about this girl that he sees in a museum.
Yes.
And she's looking around at all of the tapestries and everything.
But
and
he said girl, or like he's talking about someone young, and to me the Contessa is an older woman.
But earlier in that journal, because of course I've been looking at them, he talks about her mother. She's with her mother. Ooh. And I'm wondering if the mother found him interested in her being interested, and they strike up a conversation, kind of like Violet and Lord Anderson at the balls while she's keeping an eye on Francesca, right? So that's what made me think that the mother of this young girl might be the Contessa. And
that's interesting.
I don't see Colin necessarily like forming anything truly romantic, but I think he embellished on that. And I'm sure some sort of friendship did strike up. But she also I feel like she probably led him to down the path of brothels and whatever to gain an education for. And she was probably somebody that he talked to, like, I go to therapy so that I can have an objective third party who knows nothing of the characters in my life so that they can
Yes.
give me an unbiased opinion on my thoughts and
I
actions and perspectives.
I out loud cackled the other day when it was a meme, and it was like meeting your best friend's family for the first time and they try to be polite to you, but you know too much of the law to ever like them. I was like,
Right.
this doesn't sound familiar. Hey, Kay, how's Thanksgiving?
Well, and so like I go to therapy for that. That's a big reason because I've been gaslit so much in my life that I want to give my perspective of a situation and have somebody sit there and go, okay, well, they could be thinking this, or okay, that, I can understand how you feel that way. How did you handle it? That sort of thing. And I wonder if Colin kind of did something similar. He sought a female perspective that was outside of his circle, and she became kind of a mentor, but I think in a different way than Lady Tilly was.
I think that Colin very much, for a lot of time there, confided in his mum more so than any of the other siblings.
Yeah.
But there came a time where his feelings were now for
because
Penelope.
we don't have the relationship from the book between him and Daphne,
yes,
unfortunately.
But now that his feelings are developing for Penelope, he has realized that he can no longer confide in his mum, because if he confides in his mum, he knows that she will jump on that and immediately meddle to get them married off together, because she loves Penelope so much, and he knows that it would be with, like, it would never be malicious or like intentionally meddlesome, but that she wants her son to be happy so much that he knows he can't actually confide in her about Penelope.
Well, and I was thinking about this today as we're still on this tangent. Somebody posted about how Colin should have just gone after Penelope in season 1 because Anthony would have been all for it and would have let him marry Penelope because everybody in the family loved Penelope and all this stuff. And I'm like, no.
They clearly do not know
family,
Anthony from season 1, because he was not a nice dude.
Well, not only that, the family themselves.
He was so triggered by his trauma that he had created a persona to survive his PTSD. That's
right.
I will phrase it.
Yes, but I also think that the Bridgertons, remember, before Daphne, before the garden, before the duel, the Bridgertons were untarnished, right?
Yes.
So they looked at everything very differently. I think that the Bridgertons of season 1 would not have allowed a marriage between Colin and Penelope. In season 1, Penelope was too young. She was launched a year early, and I don't think the Bridgertons would have seen hide nor hair of that.
Yeah.
And 2, the Featheringtons were openly gambling and not paying back their debts and openly being crude and vulgar and all of that in public, that as much as they love Penelope, they would have to connect to the Featheringtons. And I think that
you could not pay Anthony a big enough dowry to ever put up with Portia Featherington.
In season 1, you couldn't pay Violet enough either. And in the end, like, Violet still was trying to find ways to walk away from Portia in a room when Colin was engaged to her. Like, Portia's like, I've been trying to get with you all evening. And she goes, well, duties of a hostess. Kate's hosting this party. What are you talking about?
I think that Kate stepped aside and let her do it, mostly for the fact that even though it's her house, that's her son getting married off. So I think Kate would have allowed.
Kate planned it. Kate was planning it.
I know,
Kate
but
was
the hope, like the mingling side of it would have been on
maybe.
Like,
but we only ever saw her hanging out with Lady Danbury like the whole night.
Keep in mind that a mother's role in today's wedding, like the mother of the bride, the mother of the groom, are two like quite important roles depending on your relationship with your parents.
Right.
I actually don't.
Or if they're alive.
I was gonna say, okay. So are we all finished with our discussions on the?
No, because I was still talking about
I got distracted with thoughts.
Yeah, we tanned. But anyways, the cuts were him basically still acting like the Colin of the end of season 2, like pandering and to the point of when he does say his thing of, isn't it quite lonely that we have to pretend to be cavalier about the one thing in life that holds true meaning? And the guys in the final edit, they just look at him funny and then start laughing. And he kind of rolls his eyes as like, this is the last place I want to be right now.
Mhm.
Fife or whatever ends up saying, did Mondrick put a bit of poppy in your tea, right? A little bit of that
Which
opium tea.
which it then also does lead us to believe that it was definitely opium tea that he brought back from Greece. Bloody Greeks and their
Yeah.
opium tea.
So yeah, so he's like, did he put a bit of poppy in your tea? And Colin's like, oh, he must have. So because I'm, playing the fool or whatever, and I forget exactly what it said because I don't have it in front of the next round is on me. So like in the end, instead of looking uncomfortable and like, I don't want to be here, he then goes buys them a drink, like, enabling their
Still
behavior
still
in a way.
playing
Yeah,
the
playing that role in the friend group.
yeah.
And then he goes up to Mondrick and they're both having their same issues. Like they're not happy with the friends they currently have, basically. Like Mondrick is having to play to the expectations of society and he doesn't want to. And Colin is like, basically like having that conversation of these people don't get me. And yeah, these people don't get me. So there's a whole conversation between Colin and Mondrick that we don't see, but I think it plays into the fact that Mondrick ends up being part of that foursome between John, Mondrick, Benedict, and Colin, and they form their own men's group friendship later. But yeah, I think all of the cuts that were made here were necessary for the Colin that was the final craft, right? The sensitive but this was the turning point. He is about to just blow the lid off everything and make the decision to make Penelope his.
Yeah.
And but I also, along with some things later, I think that Fife was digging into him a little hard because I think he really does believe he has feelings for Penelope and he's mad that he can't play on that because Colin will not reveal it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's pushing a little bit more than he needs to be.
You mean not at
There,
all
but
because
he's
it's not his business?
well, I think he like there's gentle ribbing amongst friends, and then there's what Fife is, right?
Fife is
Like
a genuine bully.
what Benedict does with Colin at in the very same situation the last night of Mondrick's club, and he's teasing him about being in love and all that stuff. That's gentle ribbing amongst friends, brothers, whatever.
Correct
But
me if
what
I'm
Fife is
wrong.
doing is terrible.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Fife was one
You're
of the ones.
wrong. No, I'm
I
kidding.
mean, Fife was one of the ones who was included in the because Sam Phillips wasn't, and I think even Sam Phillips had feelings about the fact that he wasn't included in the SAG Awards. But I'm
Sam
pretty sure
Phillips
that
couldn't.
Fife is.
Yeah, Fife has been in enough episodes.
Yes. But what I was going to say is, I think that they very much have made sure to include him in those episodes, as we've said, setting it up for next season for him to be that main antagonist who is going to attempt to SA Sophie.
Yeah, I think he's still going to play a major role. And I think we've seen him really mess
But
with every
I
Bridgerton
think
male
he's going to
except
get
for
his.
Benedict.
I think he's going to get his massive comeuppance next season. And next season, he's going to try mess with Benedict because it's almost like as if every season, except for season one, because he wasn't really, we don't really see much of him at all there. But season two, obviously, we see him kind of not messing with Anthony, but kind of going along with that whole and causing issues between his and Kate's potential relationship. Season three,
But
we see
he
him.
is absolutely like trying to tick Anthony off at the beginning of season
Yes,
three
but
at Danbury's Ball.
season two, he messed with Kate and Anthony's relationship inadvertently. Season three, he definitely messed with Colin and Penelope's relationship on purpose,
And messed with them at the end of season two.
especially no, but especially with the deleted scenes that we will talk about, where he tried to hire a mistress for Colin once he was engaged. And so I think season four, he is going to once again, it's going to be a reoccurring theme. It's going to be once again him trying to mess with Benedict after the whole Sophie thing. I think he's going to get his knickers in a twist about the fact of how dare you stop me from sexually assaulting the help. And I think that he is going to try to blackmail Colin for a lot of the time. And I think that the brothers are going to be like, you know what, you've messed with our family long enough. We've tolerated you in society long enough. You are done in society.
Well, and Nicola Coughlan has put out there that Fife hates Penelope. And we haven't seen any reason for Fife to hate Penelope per se. But he hates Penelope Featherington for whatever reason. So part of me wonders if the reason he quote unquote hates Penelope Featherington is because he doesn't really hate Penelope Featherington. It's that Colin danced with her in season 1 and everybody thinks there's this thing. And he thinks
Ooh.
Colin has feelings and he's a Bridgerton. And so and like he could have just been asking Colin, like, are you courting the
Patty,
girl?
Patty, what if he had feelings for Colin? And that's where the jealousy is coming from.
Oh,
That's
you're
why
thinking Colin, and I'm thinking her. Like, what if he had feelings for her? And
no,
he,
no, no. Fife is
oh,
the kind that would never, ever deign to be interested in someone
true,
who's more than 2 kilos past anorexia. He's that type.
possibly.
He is absolutely that type that
But
would
but
only settle
Penelope
for
is a
perfection.
goddess, and Colin is like she is perfection. And how do other people not see it? And we've
Yes.
got to see at some point that somebody did, because Debling did not. Debling
Well,
did not find her beautiful, and somebody else needed to have.
no, because I think if it were going to play out like that, we would see Fife himself messing with Colin by going after Penelope. But I think that it could have been that he was jealous over Penelope's affections for Colin.
Fife is that captain or that general in the army that sends everybody to fight, and he stands up on the mountain and
Mm,
watches them. He's not
yes.
getting in the mix of anything.
But I mean, because I mean, sometimes you've got to go completely out there with your theories, and just occasionally
Mm-hmm.
they will stick, and then you feel so proud that you came up with the most far-fetched theories, and
And
then
it
one
turned out to be
sticks.
true. Yeah.
So that's why sometimes I like to put things out there that are just like so absolutely out there crazy because it's like winning the lottery. You're like, did I really just do that? Like I'm so proud of
Well, and we can
myself.
see that because we saw the palatable version,
Yes.
palatable to the public of the time, in Cressida trying to get a dance with Colin
Yeah.
and getting thwarted, and how she's been down on Penelope ever since. So why wouldn't we have somebody in the background doing the same thing? But he has to be in the background because if his feelings for Colin were revealed, that would be a whole different story,
Like,
right?
did you ever do Wordle? Like during COVID times, Wordle, the word of the day, where you had to like try to get guess the word of the day and you got 5 attempts to do it. Did you ever do that during COVID?
A little bit. I'm not big on the phone games. I get sucked in, and then it's like I have enough distractions in
Oh,
my
but
life.
because it's literally like 20 seconds per day and you're done and you send it to your
You
family and
say
it was
that
like it was
until you
kind of
have 10 different games. Yeah.
I know I did have like 10 of them. I did Wordle, the global, the one that was more like a crossword puzzle. But anyway, Wordle, just a subtle flex here. For all our listeners out there, you are in the midst of royalty because I got it in one time. I got it in one
Woohoo!
and I was like, is anyone ever actually going to believe that I got it in one, or are they going to think that I like looked it up somewhere? I'm like, this is absolutely the achievement of my life, and I can't even put it on my CV. Like that's so wrong.
That's funny. No, no, I totally get that 100%. And what's funny is like, so it's like, do I even still call him Smaug at this point? Because I already gave away his name.
I still like the name
Um,
Smog, so we're going with it.
Yeah. So he watches a specific YouTube content creators for cruising, and he's watching these people because they're doing a series, and they put these letter blocks out, and you have to find all the letter blocks and then tell them what the word is
Hmm.
and everything. And I was like, he's sending me the letters every week, right? So that he's
Hmm.
keeping track of them. And I already figured out the answer, and there's still like three videos, which yesterday dropped one of the three, and it confirmed my theory, like for
Yeah.
sure. I was like, so just have your email ready and email it the second you see the video drop. He goes, well, you got to tell them where the letter is too to be right, and then they put everybody in a drawing, so you don't automatically win if you're first. I said, oh. I was like, well, I'll go in and subscribe, and then when the final one is, we'll both send it because you win a suitcase. And
Yeah.
I was like, if I win it, I'll give it to you or whatever. So like yesterday, he sends me the letter, which confirms my answer, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah, I already told you what the answer was. He goes, oh, I was just letting you know. I was like, but what you haven't told me is how the fact that I'm right and how clever I am.
Rude.
How
Rude.
dare you?
I want my props. Thank you very much. Give
Yes,
me
I
my
want my
props.
flowers.
Where's my flowers at?
Give me my flowers. But yeah, I think in this case with Mondrick's Bar, I think that the cuts were good because we're wanting to see a more mature Colin. A more mature Colin needs to be
Yeah.
the one that pursues Penelope and needs to be ready for Penelope, not the same guy from the end of season 2.
Not
And I
someone who's
think it
more
would have
interested. It I think the thing is we need to see a Colin who is willing to actually stand up for his belief systems and stand up
Yes.
to the Lord Squad, which is exactly what he does after the scene. This is the last time that we see him
Right.
pandering, and
And that would have been too much of a jump. That would have been too much of a
I'm
jump, I
really
think.
glad that they changed the scene from him buying another round for them and kind of sucking up, because how do they think they were going to go from, if they kept the
Mm-hmm.
original two cut scenes? Thank you for What a Barb again for finding these out for us. You guys are amazing. So the one of the cut scenes is what we're talking about now, where he goes and buys another round and basically tries to brush off ever upsetting them with honesty. I don't even know how to
Right.
phrase it otherwise.
Advocating for himself. Like he's
yes,
self-abandoning in those moments. He's
but
abandoning himself.
the next time that he sees them after this is
He
obviously when
brushes
he's
past them,
decided
yeah.
he doesn't just brush past them. The cut scene that they originally
Is the
filmed
F you,
was
yeah.
him telling them to F off. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you possibly go from let me buy you
Back
another
to
drink
that.
to say sorry, you're the best friends I've ever had, to get fucked? It does not happen. So I'm
I
glad that they
know.
kept it the way that they did in that final cut, because it showed that he was finally kind of done. And you could see he came home, he crashed into bed. He is in not, I don't think that the way that they filmed it as that kind of slurry, it's the very similar way that they filmed Penelope coming in after she's been engaged to. I don't think it was just to show that he was drunk. I think it was also to show that he was confused, overwhelmed, that he is like disorientated in life, not just by alcohol, but
Lost. He was lost. Yeah.
how to proceed, and
Mm-hmm.
that's very similar to when Penelope gets engaged. It's like everything has spun on its axis at once and she cannot
Well,
find her bearings, she can't find her feet.
well, and I think it's important too to have to see this. Like, it's not just that he's drunk, because if you look at the end of or in episode 7, when he leaves the stag party and he's walking, like he's moving slowly but purposefully.
Yes.
And here he's just moving slow. Like he feels weighted down. When you watch him
Yeah.
walk, it feels like he's carrying twice his weight in the cares of the world. But then
Well, I mean,
you
if he's carrying
spring
Penelope's boobs, he is carrying twice his weight.
in his mind, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, just everything's crashing in on him and life feels so heavy and he's walking like life feels so heavy. But
Yes.
then you see the instant he makes the decision that he does, how quickly he gets up and walks out of the study once he makes that decision. I mean, it's a very small, tiny part of that little scene, but he moves quickly. And then when he interrupts the dance and then he chases after the carriage, you can see the weight has left him. He knows his purpose. He is moving with purpose again. So I think that that whole scene is just, he is so far out of, like, his compass is broken, right? He's
Yes.
not moving toward his North Star. He's not moving towards the North or whatever, that everything seems so heavy. And I think that that was purposeful. That was amazing directing and
Yes.
acting to play that, so that we see that when he finally makes up his mind for Penelope, just how much lighter he feels, right? Because he's made this choice. I think that's so important to put those two scenes together in terms of,
and because it's a metaphorical,
Colin pre the decision and Colin post.
and it kind of goes with the whole theme of this season, which is light and shadows. Is like when he's without her, he is way down, he's in the dark, he's in the shadows, he's got no light on him. And then metaphorically, when he makes the decision to be with her, and once she accepts, that is when the light is shining back on him. He's back to being a little sunflower. He's got his little happiness, his little sunny bee.
Yeah, it's complete another utterly a changed man.
Let me just say that my son is, by the time that this episode has dropped, my son has turned 4 years old, and literally as this episode drops, I'll be heading to his birthday party, which is Bridgerton themed.
Really? Aww.
No, it's he chose. I gave him all the options this year.
He chose Bridgerton. I would die.
He did. He has chosen to have a bumblebee themed birthday party. And I was like, look at you, my little bumblebee. So I asked him like 6 months ago, what do you want? Because kids change their mind. Do you want Spidey? Do you want bumblebees? Do you want Mickey, like Mickey Mouse? And he's like, bumblebees.
Dinosaurs, yeah.
6 months straight, bumblebees. Like that is the choice. So hopefully if we have enough time today after we finish recording, I probably won't, but I can do it tomorrow. I'm gonna go get him some little bumblebee wings and And I'm making him a little bumblebee cake and some bumblebee cupcakes. And I've got these little biscuity things that we have that have like, they're in New Zealand, they're called squiggles, which is like a chocolate biscuit. And they've got like yellow squiggly lines on them. So I'm just going to chuck some white chocolate buttons with the wings cut in half so that makes little wings, and put some little eyes to make like a little bumblebee cookie.
Oh,
And have a little, little bumblebee themed birthday, which is going to be super.
I want pictures.
He's my little Bridgerton bee.
Oh,
Which is very fitting if Mummy's the sunflower. He's like, I love
True
my
that.
mummy. I want her.
Yeah, and he's always around you. So
He is. And I mean, we've already seen that the bees love me.
right.
And the wasps too, though.
But yeah, so my final take on these cut scenes is this was a good choice. This scene,
Yes.
cutting those out and showing the growth, the maturity of Colin was necessary here. So good job.
But actually, the Luke Newtons are finally starting to die down. I think we have blocked a substantial amount of them, that they are, like, it's been long enough. Bridgerton came out that they are slowing down the production of new pages. And I think it's helping also now that the main Bridgerton page is declining new Luke Newtons from entering the page. I think enough people have complained about it. Obviously, it's a public page, so they can't stop them commenting or anything, but they can stop them joining, which then I think may give them less access to our pages to find us. I don't know. But Sarah has just posted, I don't know if you saw that, but she said, listening to this week's podcast could well inspire me to create a t-shirt for myself to wear, watching Violet watching how Violet deals with Francesca in season 3, and it's she's put like on a purple background, Violet, get a clue. But I have actually responded to her to saying, and for all our listeners out there, Patty and I are in the process. I say that as if we haven't been in the process for the last 9 months straight, and we're just very slow at this process. Like literally, I think since we started this pod, this has been the goal, and apparently the goal is just really far away, and we're taking sloth steps because we're getting there. We are in the process of creating merch, and we're just trying to find a way to do it that links to our Patreon, that is a fair price, that's going to give you guys good quality merchandise, and something that we feel like you'd actually want, not just slapping a name on it and calling it a day. Like if we have people supporting us by buying our merch or buying we've got to be careful with licensing, so we will use some creative phrasing rather than just Bridgerton. So it will be very us themed, but in the realm of Bridgerton. So even if people don't know Bridgerton, they'd still probably appreciate the shirt. So we will likely be doing like t-shirts. I actually really want to, if we can find it, Patty, because one of the things that I wear the most is actually a giant oversized t-shirt for sleeping in, like, you know.
Yeah,
a sleep shirt. Yeah. So I really like to also create a sleep shirt because that's my favorite. I've got 3 Harry Potter ones.
And I think we should, because we've done the Bridgerton mash and the pajama party, and I think we should keep doing those.
I would love to do pajama parties with us in sleep shirts. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I will say, on the site that I found that you can make merch, and I have the storefront with them, but I haven't announced it.
Which we both made one without discussing with the other.
Right. We both did it because we're just like on separate schedules.
We're like, we'll be productive and
AF.
We were like, oh, we'll be productive and we'll do this and we'll send it to the other person so that the other person doesn't have to do it. And they're like, what surprise, I already did it.
Yeah, but the one I found makes it was on pajama bottoms too.
But it was on the same company, isn't it? Printful?
Yeah.
Yeah, we both made one. But I think I've got our pages in that link to the Printful that I created. But yeah, so pajamas, t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and I don't know if they do them, but hopefully they do. If not, we will use something like maybe Canva. Not Canva. Who do I use?
I was thinking of doing Amazon KDP, and because I wanted to do journal. You can't do journals on Printful.
That's what I was about to say. There's a who did I print all my Vistaprint, I think it is. And they're worldwide. I would say that you have them over there as well. I've printed all my I printed all my wedding invites through them, like all my baby announcements. I've done some Oh, we could even do like calendars. We could do like, our most romantic scene calendars, although we could potentially get in trouble for that one. But we'll roll with it until we get in trouble and then we'll be fine.
Oh, we could do a Ladies Bridgerton calendar with various people
Mhm.
of ourselves thing.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of merch that we are in the process of looking at. We just need to kind of collect ourselves a little bit more. And
We're
now that
both
we're
of the same mind where we're all ideas and implementation is the hard part.
Don't call me out like
we
that.
I called myself out too. And that's one of my favorite things. Like I tell Smog all the time, I'm like, I have an idea and you make it happen. I love that.
Yeah.
Because I struggle with the make it happen part.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on now because we are, I think, looking at our timing of how we're going, we're at an hour so far. So I think that we look at just the ballet portion of the Queen's Ball and then we save the actual ball portion for a separate episode because I think we've got enough content to kind of fill this one out and then we can leave the rest of it all together.
That works.
Amazing, because I've already split my notes up. Just hadn't quite told you guys. Okay, so
well now.
well, hey now, this is what podcast episodes are made of. Have you ever watched the Lizzie McGuire movie?
No.
Oh,
I was busy in college having a life.
Yeah,
and
that's
in
not the point.
Early adulthood.
That's not the point. I would still watch it now, and I am an adult.
I was not watching Nickelodeon then.
It was a movie.
Lizzie McGuire. But it started as a show.
Don't make me start calling you dinosaur grandma. Pick it on me for my youthful ways with my grey hairs.
You have more grey hair than I do.
Well, I mean, to be fair, could you find them amongst the blonde? They're so similar, but it's not fair. My hair is just about black. It kind of stands out a little. Like Stephen tries to say that he doesn't have grey hairs. He does. They come up in his beard. And I said, if they're in your beard, they're in your hair. You're just so blonde you can't see.
Well, and my grey hairs are white. Like my mother started getting grey, but you couldn't tell. Her hair was a little darker than mine, though. I have the lightest of the blondes. My sisters are all darker blonde. My mom's a darker blonde. But eventually she became stone white. Like she was white.
Well,
so
I'm gonna be a silver foxette.
Yep.
Foxette.
And according to Outlander, that's when we're really in our power, is when we're fully gray.
Well, so this is what I call my my wisdom stripes. So my papa's sister, Auntie Jo, she was basically my grandma growing up because I grew up in Australia and all my 4 grandparents lived over in New Zealand. And so Auntie Jo and Uncle Andrew, which were my cousin's grandparents, they basically raised me as their grandchild. Like they came to all my grandparent days at school and everything. She was the one who like made me fall in love with cooking because every single Tuesday night they would have us all over, except for if it wasn't soccer season, and then we'd Wednesday or Thursday night because our grandson played soccer. And she would have like a dozen plus of us over every single Tuesday night. And she would spend 2 days cooking for this. We would have pasticcio, we'd have fasoli, we'd have like the rice dish with like the tomato through it. I don't remember what that one's called. It'll come to me it'll come to me at 2 a.m. this morning.
Right.
And we had salad and we had the most divine roast potatoes ever and like the beautiful herbs every single week without fail. Would I eat 4 times the portion of pasticcio than I should have? Yes, it is my favorite food in the world. It is a Greek version of a lasagna, which is way more pasta and bechamel heavy than mince. She didn't put mince in because I did it at the time. She made it vegetarian for me. But she has like the same color hair as me. And her grey streak starts in the exact same spot. And so when my grey hairs started turning up in the exact same spot, I said, this is how I know that I'm on the right path of cooking, that my wisdom and skill in cooking is developing because I'm developing Auntie Jo's wisdom spots. So that's what I call my streaks of hair.
That's awesome.
It's my Auntie Jo
like,
coming out
I did kind of stuff for my nieces and nephews, but your Auntie Jo sounds like me as an aunt. Like I would have big spend the nights with like 6 or more of the nephews. I mean, I always did like Samantha always spent the night, but there was a few times I did like big crowd of kids. And one of the things I made, because everybody can make their own, I didn't have to like pre-cook like your Auntie Jo did, but we would do English muffin pizzas. It was easy, throw it in the oven. It was something I always did. And my niece called me the other day. She goes, I just thank you. And I was like, for what? And she's like, I've had such a shit day. And I realized I never pulled anything out for dinner. So what am I doing right now? I'm walking around the store to get myself something to eat. And guess what I'm having for dinner? English muffin pizzas, because I need
Cute.
a little happy. And it just reminds me of spend the nights at your house. And like, thank you for giving me that memory. Because when I need something, when I need a little bit of joy, I'm going to go make me English muffin pizza.
That's
I
so
was
cute.
like, aw.
Well,
I was like, I needed that.
this is why Colin Bridgerton would make a brilliant husband for me, because I very much show my love through feeding people, and I feed everyone. Like the other day, I had a plumber come to my house, and I'm like, hey, could I get you like a tea, a coffee, like a hot Barkers, which is a local company that we have here that makes kind of syrups, like a blackcurrant syrup and a thing. I'm like, can I get you a hot Barkers? And he's like, no, that's okay. I just had a cup of tea. Thank you so much. And I'm like, you something to eat. I've made some like breakfast burritos. I can like Steven's got some sourdough bread that he's made. I can put on some like a spread for you. And he's like, no, like I'm brilliant. I've just had lunch. Thank you so much. And I'm like, I'm Greek. Please let me like I need to service like let me feed or water you somehow. Like, come on. Let me do
Feed or
something.
water you. That's
And
funny.
face you towards the sunlight. Like I have to help grow.
Well, and I'm the same. Like I'm very much the same. I like to invite people over. Like when Kay's come over, I've made potato soup.
Mhm.
When my friend Leah's come
Oh
over, I
no, it
made
has to be
those.
potato and leek. Potato and leek is where
Uh,
it's at.
well, you can't get leek. I have made
Yeah.
potato and leek
But it's
soup.
winter. Don't even at me. You have leek there right now. It's winter. Leek is a winter veg. Don't even try to come at me. I know vegetables. I grow them.
Well, I made the potato soup with what I already had at the house. I just wanted to use up the potatoes, and I was like, I made it like a loaded potato soup, so it was like sour cream in it and bacon, and
Yum. That sounds
um,
delicious. I've never had
it was really
that.
good.
You can make it for
It
me
was
when you're
really good.
here.
And then when Leah came, I made those French onion dip sliders. Good.
Mhm.
Like I like to cook for people. I don't like to cook for myself. Like this week I've had hot dogs, fish sandwiches, and summer sausage and cheese, because it's
Mhm.
like it's and bowls of cereal, because I could eat.
Ezra had cereal and yogurt. When
So
we
I
start,
guess I guess real quick, like before, since they're being noisy on your end, I'm gonna say this as a segue. So as I'm rewatching all this leading in, and I'm watching that scene where Debling had come to ask to propose Nelton actually, but Penn goes in there like, holy crap, how did you screw this up? Which I think knowing that kind of shows like, Penn gives her mom the benefit of the doubt, and she is curious and questioning without being accusatory. But Portia later is like, "What did you do?" Right? Like
hmm
when Debling walks out, so it's like they have the same instinct, but Penelope's just kinder about it. Like she's just questioning, but you can tell by the look on her face, like, "And did you give it?" Right? Like, what did you do? He just walked out, kind of thing.
I actually kind
But
of got the slight feeling that Penelope was hoping that her mum wouldn't, because then
would have said no.
she wouldn't have to say no. Like, because I
Yeah.
mean, I'm such a people pleaser that I probably would have just married Debling out of sheer awkwardness. Like, I mean, I probably
Well, and
wouldn't have
then
gotten myself in that
the
situation.
look, the look on Penelope's face, and she does this head shake, like unbelievable. Like
Yeah,
that's what she's saying in her head when her
yeah,
mom goes, "And you're gonna handle it all, and just think of the prestige that you'll have, that we'll
yeah.
all
We
have."
will
And
all
Penelope's like,
have, like,
"I know," and Penelope
honestly,
just goes,
like,
like this head shake of hers, like, "Of there."
I could not believe that at this point Portia wasn't levitating off the ground with the amount of clouds that she was floating on in that moment. Like she was on cloud nine, like, oh, I'm gonna have all this prestige. I'm gonna be able to boss him
Mm-hmm.
around because he's a timid male. And so
Well,
she's
and she's
thinking,
thinking about the power. Well, and she doesn't
yes.
even have to worry about bossing him around. He's going to be gone.
Yes. But even if he did return, if I mean he isn't going to, but
She gets to boss Penelope around, and she thinks she can.
but she
That's
also
why
knows
she
that,
doesn't like Colin.
but he's a timid enough man that would actually be bossed around also.
Is he though? I don't think he really is, because when he showed up with the fern, like he kept directing the conversation back to Penelope, and kind of he allowed them to be present, but not really to lead the
Yeah.
conversation. Where so I think he's a little quieter than Colin is, but he's
He's
still
he's
like,
not a Lord Cowper, shall I say.
yeah, he still tried to center Penelope. He saw the injustice. He just didn't
He
openly
tries
act on
to
it.
he tries to subtly manipulate things where he wants them to go rather than outright yell through control. He is a as you said, that
He's a
narcissistic.
covert.
Yeah,
He's covert.
he manages people into the way that he wants rather than the
Yes.
Portias of the world who just like I kind of prefer
Grabs
the
you by
Portias.
your two nostrils and drags you around the room.
I
That's
kind
what
of prefer the
Portia
Portias
does.
of the world because I know exactly where I stand with them. She
It's
says what she
direct.
wants. She you know where you stand with her. Same as Lady
Yeah.
Danbury. Although some people find her terrifying, I don't because she says exactly how it is. Yes, she is guarded
Yeah.
and yes, she does have her secrets, but she also makes it very explicitly clear how she feels about you. She will not beat around the bush.
Well, and that's the thing.
Whereas with
Like
Lord
her
Dibling,
her story
whereas
is not your business unless she
yes,
makes it your business.
yes,
But she doesn't hem and haw about your place with her, and that's what I don't like guessing. I don't if you don't like me, tell me you don't like me so I don't have
yes,
to waste my time with you,
yeah.
you know? And I like people like that. I don't like people that you have to guess.
Yeah, you know, my entire life right now.
Girlfriend, our entire life, okay?
Yes. So yeah, I very much rate that and I don't rate the Lord Dabblings where you're being managed without
I
even
don't think
necessarily
that Lord
realize
Debling
you're
is
being
evil. I don't think
no.
he's evil, but I also don't think he's forthcoming either.
No, he's not my brand of happy, okay? That's the way I'll put it. I will
And
always
I don't think he's defensive. He's not truly protective when you know, you watch all these videos about a man loves you when, or he's into you when, and they always say men are protective. So when he
No.
tries to be protective of you, and not necessarily like the alpha male, like I'm gonna fight for you, not that protective, but like
Protective
just
of your peace.
well, yeah. And there's this other dude I watch on TikTok, and I can't remember his name right now, but he does these like quotes from literature and stuff. So he's like, you're in love when, because this person says this. And one of those is a philosopher said, love is when you want to protect. You're the protector of their solitude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love that. And I think that we see Colin be super protective of Penelope. He protects her solitude. He protects her secret. He protects because he knows if the Ton finds out it's her in any certain way that doesn't protect her, she's screwed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's protecting her solitude, whereas Debling is not outwardly protecting her. He is trying to give her more attention and like take away attention from Portia in a way. Like he deals with Portia, I think, the same way he deals with his family, right? Kind of just ignores them. They're like a couple of mosquitoes in the room and he's batting them away.
Yeah.
But he's not necessarily doing it to protect Penelope, more so as protect himself. Like because they're annoying to him.
Yes.
Right. So that's the difference. But the look on her face when Portia says and me too kind of thing, and she's just like, of course
Yeah,
you would say
this is
that.
what it this is what it all
Cracks me
boils.
up.
This is what it all boils down
Yeah.
to, how it's going to benefit you, not that it's anything
And
to do
then
with me. Thank you. If you are wanting to follow on, the Queen's Ball begins at 26 minutes and 22 seconds.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say about the ball is we see Penelope and Francesca are at the exact same point in their love stories, in their arc.
Yes.
They are both looking around for a person they are not seeing, right? They're trying to gauge where people are in the room, specific people. We already know Penelope sitting in front of her vanity is having that come to Jesus moment with herself, and then she steels herself to prepare herself to make the choice. And we watch Francesca do the exact same thing while sitting in the box. Like Samadani's looking at her and he looks like she's a prize to be won, and not necessarily in a bad way, but it's not really loving. But he's about to propose. Just the look on his face. It's coming.
Yes.
He's made his decision. And so she looks from him and she looks over and she sees John, and she's looking at him. He doesn't even turn his head or anything. And then she makes almost that exact same reaction like Penn in the mirror, where she kind of like steels herself and shakes her head a little bit and does the outward breath. Francesca does the same thing.
I know she does.
I just want to point out that this is important, and this is important storytelling here, just in these two small, tiny moments and reactions of these. Most people look at Penelope, everybody's talking about Penelope not being the ideal.
Did you read my notes
body
this
type?
time?
No.
Because I feel like you're reading out my notes right now. Like literally.
No, it's in mine.
So
I said Fran looks to him, and then John, who's up now. and has not made a move, and she makes a squinty head shake like Pen in front of her mirror. She will do what she must to get what she quote unquote wants, which is to escape her house, even if it means choosing the man she doesn't want.
Mine writes, Fran is searching for Lord Kilmartin. She spies him close by in the crowd, seems pleased to see her, that he is there, but then somewhat shakes her head as if to remind herself that he had given her the cut the other day and that he's no longer an option, trying to snap herself out of her fixation. Like, when you were like, she sort of shakes her head, I'm like, my notes right now.
No, I have my own. But I think this is good storytelling in the fact that Penelope is not considered the ideal. I mean, for the time period, she would have been. Let's be real. She would have been the ideal. And Fran would have been considered too skinny. But we're looking at a woman who's a Bridgerton, B, beautiful, and then we got Penelope, who has her own kind of beauty, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. But she is also a Featherington.
Crazy to me because she is a knockout, like absolutely. Like,
correct.
If I was going to be turning for anyone, if I was going to be turning for anyone, it's going to be Penelope.
Right.
We can talk about books together. We would have the best. Jo.
We would gossip together.
Like the relationship. I mean, not that we got to see Jo's partner in M with an E, but like the way that she talked about the way that they read together. And how like she'd give her a book that she knew that she'd like, and I'm like, oh, this sounds perfect.
Aunt Jo and Anne with an E would have been if Eloise and Penn had gotten together.
Yes, literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, but I think that the story of woman in this time period, regardless of connection, regardless of beauty, regardless of whatever, if they need a certain thing, like, and in both these cases, Francesca wants to get married, start a life. She's almost coming at it in a very masculine way, kind of like Colin was in season 1.
Yes.
Where,
practical.
He's just very, practical, and I need to escape my family to feel like I can mature and grow up anymore.
What's crazy to me is I wonder whether she just spent so she's grown up in a very rare scenario where she had two parents who absolutely loved and adored and were fanatics for each other. She then went to go stay with her Aunt Winnie, who also had a love match with Edmund's brother. It wasn't
Read that book.
Evan.
While you look that up, I'm just gonna finish my
Hugo.
sentence.
Hugo dies.
Hugo.
So she's grown up with like her parents who are deeply, deeply in love. She then went and stayed with Aunt Winnie, who I think would have shared about the love that she had with Hugo and how she hasn't been remarried because she will never ever find that sort of love again, and she is quite content in her own space, knowing the love that she had, sort of a little bit like Lady Danbury, knowing that she'd had the love that she had for Violet's dad, Lord Ledger. Yeah. That she could survive the rest of her life knowing that she did have a great love no matter how long it lasted, sort of like Aunt Winnie. So it kind of surprises me that Francesca has such low interest, and that is obviously another reason why we do think that she is very spectrumy, where love is just not a priority of hers. But then she realizes that even if she hasn't prioritized that a little bit like Eloise, doesn't mean it can't creep up. Those little feelings can't just creep up upon you, and they're like, surprise, you have feelings.
Well, and I think her feelings are love, but also feelings of affection, because she feels seen by him where she doesn't feel seen by Lord Samadani. She's going to end up having a life she doesn't want. She's going to have a life that she's trying to escape currently. Yeah. But she understands that if this is all she's got, this is what she's going to have to accept. And she's going to have to then shape the future in a way that maybe doesn't quite turn out the way he's planning. You know what I mean?
Can you imagine current Francesca going on wilderness hikes? Because you've read Fran's book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Francesca in the books, whenever she gets overwhelmed, she basically just goes and takes herself through a hike through and I mean Scotland hiking
and
trails are
it
is hiking. It is not like a leisurely stroll through some like rolling kind of meadows. It is hiking uphill.
But she even says like, I'm going to move there because I think I can find myself there, and that may be something she finds that she discovers about herself.
Yeah, because basically, like in the books, Francesca is so introverted that even just having like housekeepers out and about through the house, she's like, you know what, that's too much
Stresses her
interaction for
out. Yeah.
me. I'm gonna take myself for a little walkie walk with a little bookie book. I'm gonna have my own time.
Yeah. But so ultimately the theme here, if you look at Francesca, if you look at Penelope, if you look at Cressida, is like if you have a choice before you and one is something that it doesn't seem like much of a choice, like for Penelope, Colin is her choice, but he's not made a move for her and he's the one who has to pursue. And
Yes.
Francesca, she wants John, but he hasn't really made an outward declaration of interest. So she kind of has to shake him off. She has to go with what she has, and Penelope has to go with what she has because there wasn't a lot of options for women. And
Yes.
Cressida always gets super close, but then doesn't quite get there. So, you know, in the end, her parents have to find something for her because ultimately at a certain age you become a burden on your parents. It's just how it is. As we were just Charlotte Luke a little bit ago,
yeah.
From Pride and Prejudice. Like women were considered property to be handed off and passed off, and they're basically just a burden on whatever male gets them.
And isn't it like horrendous to think
because
that
they can't work and they can't produce and they can take that responsibility from, from the male having to do that part, then they're worthless basically. Back then it was like they have babies and they run a house and that's it.
I can't imagine, and this is why we stand George so hard, because imagine having no choice as to your own future and your own desires in life. You just have to be told what to do, where to stand, where to have a baby, how many babies you're going to have. Like it's basically like playing a game of MASH, but someone else is trolling it. Like you just get told, hey, this is where you're going to live. This is how many babies you're going to have. It may or may not kill you. That will be the surprise.
Yeah. Your child rearing years may or may not kill you. And you're going to be either directing staff or cleaning your own house for the rest of your life.
You may or may not be beaten by your husband, but you'll get 5 caracals. Right.
Like, yeah, 24 caracals, but your man's never going to be home. And when he does come home, he's going to expect wifely duties because he's trying to create an heir. And yeah.
Okay, so
it's not pleasant.
One thing that I noticed about the Queen's Ball / ballet is Alice called it a dinner when she was talking to Will about it. She said, "Are you going to be attending tonight's dinner with me?" But that is the day that they head to the ball. But is it though? Because
But I think she ends up going with Danbury, there was probably dinner at Danbury's house.
Actually,
most of these balls had a some sort. If you read the books, like a lot of them had a meal attached to them.
Actually, I don't think it is, because she said tonight's dinner, but then we see the boys drinking and, being drunkenly, and Colin goes home drunk, and that's not the same night. It's the next day. So actually that must be a dinner that she's attending that night, and then it's the following night. Okay. Because I was like,
and she was probably having dinner with Lady Danbury, because at some point she would have had to invite her to the ball.
Yes.
To escort her to go with her. Yeah.
Yeah, they would have had to have made plans. Like, hey girl, you want to be my +1?
Oh, you're not going to yet another ball? Just come with me. You'll be my +1.
Yeah. So this is
I've introduced my rake of a brother around. He can show up on his own.
Yeah. My sister's meant to be escorting me. She left 5 hours ago.
She left already.
She was like, "Outies, tell my brother, haters loser." Can you imagine the staff being? It would be so funny. For those who can't see,
if there was
it's the I was putting
a retelling
the L on my forehead, like from the movie Loser with Jason
Biggs.
I was like, is it Biggs? Is it, where is that?
I love that movie. That is one of my favorite Jason Biggs movies.
It's a great movie. And the song is just so fantastic. Okay, so this is where we do get that famous ballet performance of Eros and Psyche that the Queen hosts, and she's kind of hoping to inspire a romance between she says between my lovers, and she's very specifically speaking of Lord Samudani and Francesca, which is interesting because originally it seemed that the Queen was only interested in creating an advantageous match to outdo Lady Whistledown, but I do wonder whether maybe she's starting to realize that the most interesting matches of the last 2 seasons, and the entire reason that she's been thwarted time and time again, is because she keeps losing out to a love match. So maybe that is why she's trying to inspire Francesca and Lord Samudani, hence why she picked a kind-hearted family man who's eager to please. She thought it was going to be a slam dunk because she thinks plus B equals C. But Fran's a little neurospicy and love doesn't really work that way. Like it can be A plus A equals C. Like it's a little bit of algebra.
Yeah.
We don't really know what's going to happen.
Well, and the fact that like she called out the reason she was not going to be successful early on.
Yeah.
Like you are not performing for me. You're performing for yourself. And Francesca ultimately is going to do what she do, but she's going to go hide a way to do it. She's not going to openly say, "No, this is what I want to do." Right? So the queen doesn't find out until the wedding breakfast. I mean, she kind of already knew, but Fran didn't tell her, you know. But I think that, and we see her look directly over at them. And I love that it kind of looks like they're breaking the fourth wall, but you realize they're looking over at the thing.
Yeah.
I still love that piece of camera work.
And I do think that the queen actually chose a really, really lovely and suitable match for Francesca. If the goal was to, if you put one nice person and one nice person together and there is nothing.
And that's all they needed.
And there's nothing untoward about them, they will fall in mutual love at some point and they will have a really nice love together. But it's certainly not going to be the 13 children of the queen wasn't a love match, but I think it almost was in a way, because the second that he saw her climbing over the wall and the second that he gave her a choice, it was love. Like it was the beginning kindlings of it. But I do actually think that they were a love match, because even before
in that day and time, most people, once they got the heir, they didn't have to sleep together anymore, and they proceeded to have 15 children.
Yes.
It was a love match.
It was a love match. And because I think he gave her the choice of choosing him, and he chose her in that moment, not because his family was forcing him to. Like they both knew that, yes, this is what society expected of them. But if either of them truly didn't want it, that they could have found a way out of it. I mean, there was going to be an uproar about it for sure.
I think the queen is getting closer in how she chooses. But I think she's also forgetting,
free will.
Well, and not just will, but like what people want out of their lives. Like she assumes that because Francesca came from a big family, that she would want a big family. Like she's making a lot of assumptions about what each of them wants. Truthfully, if she would have introduced Samadani to Daphne, that might have made a difference.
Okay, so
rather than the prince.
Let's play a game here for a second.
I think the prince would have been a better match for Francesca.
Yes.
Like she's got the right people, but she's offering them to the wrong Bridgerton.
Okay, let's for a second pretend that Morgan and Stephen didn't, and we were completely eliminating them in our minds. And you
because you're like, they'd have to not exist for us to eliminate them in our minds. They
would have to be wiped from existence and from our memories.
Yes, I would not have to have a single memory.
And
I get you.
Like, let's just pretend if we were to write out a list of characteristics of our perfect match of what I wanted before I found Stephen. Let's put it that way, because that's literally the only way that I can think of it. And I do have enough memory to think of the things that I thought were important to me were loyalty.
God, I was a teenager.
Well, funny. I wanted funny. I wanted whoever was funny and would entertain me and make me laugh all the time.
I wanted somebody who would make me laugh.
I wanted someone who was outgoing and probably quite like loud like me. And if you were asking for physical descriptions, I would always say that stereotypical response of tall, dark, and handsome. I'm like, I'm short. Everyone is tall to me. That's not even a thing.
Well, and I would say that I've always been drawn to a specific aesthetic, but I always used to say when I was younger that I wanted somebody with dark brown hair and brown eyes, because if we created a son, like I would never be able to tell that little boy no, because he'd be looking at me with some brown eyes. Because I was like, I did not like my eyes.
I wanted brown hair so that I wanted my kid to look like me, and look what happened, Patty. Look what happened.
It looks just like his daddy.
I'm like, I went out with my girlfriend the other day who's Italian but way fairer skinned than me. Like a quarter of my printer ink went into her. And we were out and about, and I'm like, the funny thing is no one would even know which one of us Ezra belongs to. They would probably guess you because you've got lighter. You would never pick that he belongs to me, and that's just rude. Rude.
That's funny.
But
No,
but what I was saying
so
is if I looked at what I was interested in or what I thought was good for me is a complete opposite from Stephen, because sometimes we're idiots and we don't actually know what's good for us. We want what we want, but not what we need necessarily. And
yeah, because I definitely my fantasy was grand gestures. I wanted Lloyd Dobler.
well, that's the thing, is because we were both romance readers, and so my thing was my thing
I
was
wanted I wanted the damn boombox in my driveway, okay?
I wanted words of affirmation, and then I married an
Yes.
autistic man who
Preach it.
there's no words of affirmation. I mean, he's beautiful. He does tell me he loves me every day, but like it was a process getting here. like and if I
Well,
told
and
him
you know
if,
my side of that. That's free.
like honestly though, like I think the only words of affirmation I've ever gotten, and they're so precious to me because they're so few and far between. I have them somewhere in here actually, is I say to Stephen, I don't ever care what you get me for birthdays or Christmases, or like I'm not like, I like gifts where he's clearly thought about
Thoughtful, yes.
my needs. Like him getting me a telescope is amazing because that's then
Well,
time that
there's
we
needs.
spend together.
I don't want a pragmatic gift. Like I've always said, do not get me a vacuum cleaner for my
Hmm.
birthday. I will be mad. But I like gifts that had thought put into
Yes.
them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, I saw this and, like I think a lot of people think it's thoughtful, and it is, considering how my family has treated my Bridgerton obsession for the last year. The
Hmm.
fact that I got Bridgerton related gifts for my birthday is a huge big deal. Like they put thought into it. But I also think, like, I used to joke around, like my mom was very devout Christian, and it seemed like every time Mother's Day, her birthday, Christmas, it was like if you got something with a Bible verse on it, or something Jesus, and to me after a while that became a cop out. Like I want to get mom something other than that, you know what I mean? But in terms of thought too, I'd almost be like, if I got a tube of toothpaste and the man knew what kind, like I would have a specific brand, like knew what kind of toothpaste, or the what my coffee order is, or not, like I'm not a big gift card fan. I did have a lot of people just send me money and tell me I got to spend it on myself.
Hmm.
And that's a funny story too, because my best friend sent me some money for my birthday. And then I asked her about it. She goes, yeah, I just sent you a little extra for your birthday. And then later she was like, now don't you even spend that on a bill. That is for you to spend
Yeah.
on yourself. I was like, well, I lent it to my nephew. And she's like, darn it, I know you too. I should have expanded on my stipulations.
So,
But
speaking, how you were saying just before about how your family talks about how Bridgerton obsession. So,
yeah,
we've got one of
they've
our
been down on it all the whole year.
yeah. So, we've got one of our listeners, Abby. I don't know if she's in our Facebook groups and everything. She's always one
Yeah.
of the top contributors in the main Bridgerton group as
Mhm.
well. She's amazing. But we've also been talking Exo Kitty, and I sent, like, if you could see, like it is like it we sent each other this humongous breakdown of Exo Kitty yesterday. And one of the points, and you'll appreciate this part, I said, I totally understand about having to edit yourself when not around hyper analyzer. I said, like, before I met Patty, I would talk about Bridgerton season 1 with my best friend, but it was always just surface feature stuff of being excited to watch the new episode. Oh, we love Simon. Oh, the music is so beautiful. But I always had to edit my excitement because I'm always the friend who loves stuff just a little too much.
Yes. Yes.
Because she was like trying to apologize for like writing me a complete like it was a thesis on it, and I'm like,
Never
I
apologize for
am
a
the
dissertation.
thesis girl. Please, I want to read your thesis. I want peer reviews. I want all of the analysis.
I will be your peer reviewer. Send me your dissertation. I want
Yes.
it. Like,
Yeah.
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 Show me something I don't know. Like,
Yes.
we've recently had listeners post things that were like, what? I didn't even notice that. Like, I have to go back and check. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, send me all the things, all the
Yeah.
things.
And that's one of the things I was going to say before about What a Barb is we never feel the need to compete with them or not encourage our listeners to go listen to them because I think we both offer really different content.
Yeah.
And that's why I never feel threatened by them. They do amazing work and they
No.
do their own work. And Patty and I are our own brand of amazing work. And I think that we probably dive the deepest into the episodes than anyone else. So I think the thing is when you have your own brand, you don't feel the need to compete with others because you feel secure in what you are producing is something different to other people.
Well, yeah, and I like, I like their structure. They're very structured, and I mean, they also say they get wordy, but I feel like they're a lot more notes driven and a lot more structured. So to me, I feel like they're the college course, and then we're the lab, like we're the workshop, right? Like that's how I feel. Like we're complementary, like
Mm.
how in college you would take a science course and then you take a
You
lab,
have to take both of
or
them. Yeah.
yeah, or
They
you
go
take
hand
like
in hand.
the acting class, but then you have the workshop, like
Yes.
where you workshop something. Like, yeah, so I feel like we're the workshop. We're a little less structured, but you learn just as much from us. We're
Practical
we're
knowledge.
practical application. Yeah.
Let us teach you the ways of the fan. Actually, that would be a funny if we get fans and do like an art of.
Oh, speaking of fans, since we're talking about the Queen's box,
Yes, the
I
Queen's
wanted to point
box.
out because we talked so much about her hairpiece and how the swans are in there. But there's a pan out that they do at the end of the dance, and you can
Hmm.
really see it because it's a continuity error I'll get to in a minute when we get to the end of the dance. But the ladies in waiting, they're all dressed very
Yes.
swan-like.
Yes,
Like
they
their
are.
fans are swan
Yep.
feathers,
Yep.
and Brimsley's waistcoat has white feathers all over it.
Yes.
There is a definite theme.
There. Yeah, for sure. And I said, actually, wouldn't it be interesting if Bridgerton sponsored someone to do a real life Eros and Psyche ballet performance, sort of how like they dip their toe into the Bridgerton by candlelight pie? I think a bunch of people would go and watch that. Like that kind of ballet was just spectacular. And if they did a Bridgerton ball, which started with that ballet piece, I think people would go ham over that.
If they could recreate the Queen's Ball as a Bridgerton ball, I
Yes.
would pay for that.
Yeah,
I would go.
like people would pay top dollar for that kind of event. Like, let's put it out into I mean, I can't attend it because it's always going to be in America. It's not ever going to be in little world New Zealand. Like, the only castles that we have are like, 8 hours down south at like Larnac Castle.
Well, and I don't
and
even think
that.
I don't even think it needs to be a castle. It could be an event center. It just
Yeah,
has to be large enough that they can paint the spot where the dancers would be in the
yeah,
center because
yeah.
you'd stand around on the edge and watch.
But I mean, you
Um,
could literally get a like I'm planning this out for whoever wants to create this. You could literally have something like printed up on a huge, huge, huge like sheet kind of thing, and like almost like not glue it to the floor, but like adhere it to the floor, like a giant sticker kind of thing that they stick to the floor in some way. Like I think that would work.
well, if you look at like an arena, okay, like we'll talk where the Cavaliers play, the basketball team in Cleveland
I was
near
like the
me.
who now.
They paint the floor all the time because different things happen there.
Hmm.
So, and they paint the floor for the finals. They repaint like, the names on the floor and stuff like that. So, if you did a place like that or an event center
Hmm.
like that wasn't necessarily hardwood floors, you could paint or create a very small dais type of stage
Hmm.
where the ballet could occur. And if you have a large enough event center, you could have tables and stuff set around, and that stage where the just like with the Queen's Ball, the stage where the ballet happened becomes the dance, and then the tables and everything are around the edge, so people could still sit at their table where they're having a dinner to watch the ballet.
Yeah. So the Queen kind of says to Brimsley that she is hoping the play will inspire her lovers tonight. And to be fair, it does inspire many lovers, just not the ones that she particularly thought it would. And
It
so this
inspired for sure.
because literally as she says that, the scene cuts over to Lord Summerdarning, who's looking very lovingly over Francesca, who's sitting there with her mum,
I don't,
and
yeah, I don't think
Eloise.
lovingly. I think
Well, I think
she's
okay.
going to be added to his
Should we
collection, but
say
he definitely.
adoringly then, because I
Yeah.
think he
Well,
does
I
have.
said he's looking at her like she's a prize to be won. Like he has chosen his prize, and we know that that look is I'm proposing. In
Yeah,
my
well,
opinion, he's made his decision.
I think he was aware that, like, although it wasn't necessarily a love match, that she was amiable
Mm-hmm.
enough and whatnot, that, and she
Yeah.
comes from such a loving family that he's like, I'm more than happy to like bring
Yeah.
it's not like meeting the Featheringtons of, oh, if this is what their family looks like, this is going to be awful. He
Yes.
meets the family, he's like,
Yeah.
you have such a loving family, so it gives him a good
The
idea of,
pros column is definitely longer than the cons column, and
yeah.
he's
So
made his. Yeah.
I think he holds some level of
Affection.
affection
Yeah.
for her. But this is obviously when we see Francesca is searching Lord Carmarthen
Agreed.
in the crowd. And I really do think that she's like she comes aware of the fact that she does hold affection for him, and she's trying so desperately to like squash it down because she did take what he did as such a deep rejection, as in Lord Carmarthen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's funny
A
because
little bit of rejection sensitivity dysphoria, little Miss
well,
Neurospicy girl.
because she doesn't know how to actually read, like,
Mm-hmm. Social
like,
cues, yeah.
yeah.
Because he said that is rather helpful.
Yes.
Like, yeah. I,
And
I
she
felt
just,
her pain there though, because I would be like, what did I say? What did I would be analyzing it for weeks.
and
Like I screwed up there. I gotta figure this
I
out.
think it was another moment where she realized in the, like, after the fact that she let her emotion ride that entire interaction. And I don't think she's used to that. I think she is so used to having her emotions on
Being in
such
control.
lockdown that she's in control all the time.
Mhm.
Yes, I have a heated blanket on. It's chilly today.
I'm I
It
got
it
my hoodie.
it dropped from being, I'll do a little converty. We had the other day, we were hitting 90, like early 90s, and today it is currently 59. Like, excuse me?
We hit the 70s last week, and this week, this whole week, it's only been like 35 to 40 degrees. Like it's
But
been super
like
cold.
90 to 60 is such a rude, like, excuse me, what? Not here for that at all. Thank you very much. But speaking of hot and cold, yeah, I think that yeah, Francesca is so used to being troll that for the first time in her life, and this is why I do think it's love. I don't, well, I mean, at least the beginnings of love with Francesca and John is she's realizing for the first time that she is actually out of control. She is
I think she
surprised
has
by
an
her own
interest.
actions.
She is seriously interested in him.
And she's
Like,
trying so hard not to be because she's like,
yeah.
I think it scares her. Like when you are someone who is incredibly in control of their own emotions. And I remember even feeling this with Steven because my first boyfriend that I ever had, he broke up with me and he's like, I don't think you actually like me. And I'm like, I'm sure I do. Uh, like I was like, I'm just used to being hyper independent and I'm not used to having to share like my thought processes with anyone. I'm not used to having to validate anyone or really can like think about where my time goes. I'm not someone who wants to be like glued at the hip with someone else. And I think because my first two boyfriends were very unhealthy kind of people who and that's because I grew up reading romance is when you get love bombed, it's like this is your happy ever after, the I love yous,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to have children with you, and we're going to be
Mm-hmm.
together forever within weeks of dating. And you think, oh, it's happened so easily for me. This is wonderful. And now being an adult, knowing what I know, if someone were to come to me
You'd
and
be
tell me,
like,
if
ew.
one of my young cousins came to me and said that their boyfriend had told them that he loves them within like a week of dating, I'd be like,
No,
run and hide.
run.
You lock that door, you throw away the key, you get some
Exactly.
cement, you cover it up, you put a fire place in front of that door, you do not let them in. And if they somehow get past all of that, they're going to burn to death. So we're all covered. Like, I'd be like, we do not validate love bombing in this household. Thank you very much. Like,
Well,
but
yeah,
young me
and
thought that
honestly,
that's what love was love bombing. And now I'm with Steven, and not that I'm saying that Steven's necessarily on the healthy side of it either. He shows his love to me every day. Like yesterday I woke up and obviously for the last
hold on 1 second. I
Daisy.
have to do an intermittence because Daisy Like, this isn't Butler, okay? Butler
Daisy
was
Duke.
the one who said, she's got to go.
She's
I'll
got to
be
go.
right back here.
We're at 2 hours, so we're just about ready to wrap up. But yeah, if I
Well, and
was
I have
to,
one more thing specifically to say whenever you're done about
yeah,
Devlin.
but yeah, like if I was to look at what I wanted as a young teenager, and keep in mind these are teenagers that are making these decisions. I
Yes.
would have chosen completely differently, but now being more emotionally evolved, I realize that love is shown. What I was saying is Stephen, because obviously for the last 9 months, however long we're courting for, he's given up Sundays so that we can basically court, and most of the time he takes Ezra out unless it's rainy or he's sick or something. But now that my son is in kindy 3 days a week, we are now recording on a Monday, and I said to my husband, well, seeing as Sundays are now free again, how about you go back to airsoft? I said not every week because I'd still like to I'd like to get back to spending some time with each other. But he goes from, I think he leaves about 8 a.m. and gets home about 1 p.m. or something. So it's a good nice like breakaway for him. And to say thank you, I woke up to freshly made sourdough cinnamon scrolls on my plate next to my bed. I was like, that's so cute. Thank you so much. And that is way better than love bombing. Filling me with cinnamon treat is the way to my heart.
Well, and we had this conversation, like, my lifetime, and I think like this time around I was the unhealed, and so his brand of affection seemed very, and it didn't feel,
his brand of
I don't want to say
affection
it,
does not compute.
right, it doesn't, and it's very subtle, and
Yes.
I needed to be loved a hell of a lot louder back then
Yeah.
because I had not had much of it up to
Yes.
that point. So, but as as life happens and choices are made and things happen, I ended up in a relationship with who not only love bombed me immensely in the beginning to where I did think, oh, this is it. This is that story. This is
Yeah.
the only thing that would make sense for why Smaug and I didn't get together is because this was the one, right?
Yeah.
This was the only thing that would make sense. Only for it to get twisted and turned,
Daisy, are you really trying to cut in on Butler's territory?
and they're
Like,
outside. I'm telling you, there's something out there. They wanted to get out. There's out.
yeah.
But so I needed that though. I needed to go through the desert basically, and the manipulation and the twists and the turns and the all of that, so that I recognize the subtle.
Yes.
It's a lot sweeter because having love that you give twisted back at you to manipulate, having it all, everything be manipulation. That this is just straightforward. And okay, Daisy, I agree. That it's direct. It's not grandiose by any means, but it makes the statement it needs to make, and it's just as sweet because there's honesty behind it, and there's no agenda. No agenda.
Yes. Yeah.
And so
the agenda is just to love you quietly.
I'm at a place now where I can appreciate it.
Speaking of someone learning to appreciate love, Eloise actually looks rather moved by this play also. And I think that I do not think that it is truly that she is opposed to love. I think it's just that she is opposed to the life that it brings and what it represents for many women. She's clearly not entirely unaffected, as she clearly had true feelings for Theo. And I think that's actually one of the main reasons why she ran from Theo as well, is sort of a little bit like Francesca. I think she realized how out of control that she was and how driven by emotion she was when it was to do with Theo, and how much that scared her, because she was someone who thought that she relied solely on logic and smarts and intelligent, and why am I acting so dumb all of a sudden, doing things that could get me in a lot of trouble for a boy? Yeah. I think that kind of Francesca and Eloise's mindset when it comes to love kind of mirror each other a little bit, and I think that's why they've put their love stories, presumably we think, next to each other. It's because they both have a very similar lesson to learn when it comes to love.
Yeah. And then just so we can are there any other reactions?
Yes.
We had a lot of romantic reaction.
Yes. So the last one being is we also see Alice quite deeply moved by the play, and I wonder if
Danbury.
I wonder if it's in part due to the distance that she is feeling with her husband. I wrote my husband, and I'm like, am I feeling something? Is this a Freudian slip? Yeah, I wonder if it's in part due to the distance that she is feeling with her husband, currently separate bedchambers, her having to attend events on her own, feeling like she's raising her children with strangers instead of her husband for the first time in her life. It would actually be incredibly lonely.
And since you ended on Alice, that fits in perfect to my
Oh, good.
continuity error. So they keep showing Danbury and Alice are up in the Queen's box with her, right? But at the end of the dance, when they bow and they show full on the Queen's box, Danbury and Alice are not present. A lady in waiting is sitting in the chair, but there is this little red stanchion thing next to the lady in waiting who's sitting in the chair. And I think this was a kind of a situation where they were framing it and they recorded the framing of it.
Yeah.
But they had something in place of where Alice would stand so that they could visually see that.
Yeah.
But they ended up using that shot, and it was long enough that those of us like analytical people would catch that, but it was short enough that if you were, moved by the play or didn't watch it a bazillion times, you would not have caught that they were missing.
An inhuman amount.
Because they made it very symmetrical, because there was two ladies in waiting on each side of her. She's in the center. Brimsley is up to her right. There's another lady in waiting kind of towards the back, and then you had the two officers behind her. So like it was looking very symmetrical. And I think they for that visual, and Danbury and Alice were nowhere to be seen all of a sudden, and then they were back there when she thanked her for coming, bringing her with. So just a little continuity error for you.
Yeah. All right, but today, gentle listeners,
hold on.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Sorry.
I want to say this other thing.
Okay, go.
End of the dance. First thing that happens. Okay, Debling walks up to Portia and Penelope in the group. And this is very important. This is something I noticed.
That was in the next part.
Oh, are we starting the next part with that?
Yeah. Like literally, we see everyone's reactions.
Well, I put it in the intro.
Sorry.
I think. Let me check. If I have it in the intro, I got
you do actually. I feel like you do.
Yes, I do. It's in there. Okay. So let me just say this real quick. This will be the end. Okay. So this is something that just came to me all of a sudden while I was watching it, because Debling walks up. He's like, Miss Featherington. Portia's like, oh, Lord Debling, have you come to steal away our Penelope from us? And I think she's got a spot on her dance card, like making it sound like she's super popular, right?
Yeah.
And Penelope goes, many, in fact, many. Okay. Now, what do we know about dances?
We know
what has been clearly said about dances at a ball.
Pride and Prejudice has really, really set up. And then we have Violet, who has definitely like rung this into our heads multiple times.
Season 1, season 2, and season 3.
And because this was specifically stated just before this scene with Violet talking to Francesca about it, specifically when she was walking through town before the meeting with Lord Carmarthen, was second dance's state's intention.
Yes. A second dance is a clear indication of intention to propose, of intentional interest, right?
Yes.
So we know that. What does Lord Debling say? Please do me the honor of taking one of your spots. And he takes the very, 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 very last dance.
Which means that he left her on the dance floor, on the side of the dance floor, for the entire rest of the night leading up until that point, which is kind of humiliating when the Ton knows that Portia has gone everywhere, telling everyone.
And telling everybody.
Penelope is being engaged tonight, but his actions are clearly telling a whole other story.
Yes, so one of two theories I have, okay? That's either my theory that he is involved with the Lord Squad and this has all been a ruse to get Colin to come forward and fight for Penelope and take his woman that he clearly has feelings for, and he's pretending he doesn't, because Lord Debling, yes, he's in the Ton, but is he really looking for a wife? We don't know that for sure, because he's traveling, and that doesn't kind of make sense that you just marry for someone to manage your estate, right? It's a nice story, but it doesn't necessarily have to be true. It can be part of the ruse. And he chose the last dance, hoping Colin would swoop in at any period of time, right? Or he, our second kind of theory is that he's figured out Portia, and she's very much like his family, and he's he does not want to be aligned with that.
Bowing out.
So
Thank you very
he's
much.
trying to find a way to bow out.
Or
But
in the
the
words of
third
Taylor
one-
Swift, I don't want to be part of your narrative. Thanks.
Yeah. Or in the third thing, which is, probably most closest to the story. He does not love Penelope, nor does he revere her in the kind of way Colin does. And
Yes.
he is very concerned. You can tell about how awkward he is and about how he reacts to the interruption of the dance, that he's very concerned with his reputation in the ton, in terms of his title, not so much in terms of himself. He even says, though, he tries to not just talk about conservationism because he would not have very many invitations to dinner. So he is concerned with his reputation. So
Yes.
I think he purposely is not doing a second dance to have clear intention, because he doesn't believe in the stock value of Penelope Featherington, and he did choose her because she's low hanging. Because he's not looking for a love match. He's looking for something to benefit him. Those are my 3 takeaways from that. But yes, he only asked for 1 dance when clearly 2 shows your intention. So he's either playing a chess game with Portia, he's got a side chess game going on with the Lord Squad, or he himself is just not ready to openly declare his intentions for Penelope to the world, which is douchey. And
I kind of see it as maybe a 4th option, as he has some social awareness, but I do think that he is a little neurospicy himself. And I do not think that he considers how his actions can affect I think it's that he knows his actions can affect the perception, because he knows technically the rules of the ton. He just doesn't necessarily know how they apply to him. He knows, hey, you're supposed to do A, B, and C, but I think he actually just doesn't care about the rules of the ton that greatly, because he does what he wants. He's kind of, this season they've really focused on all the outliers in society and how they do their own thing, and how because of that society seems them. Because I mean, if Darcy were to do the exact same thing, we would just say he's got social anxiety, and we would completely play it off. But because we have certain feelings about him, we may look into it a little bit deeper than it is. But I do actually think it is a social.
But think of it this way:
lacking on
the two love interests for Francesca, right?
Yeah.
Samadani is more outgoing. He's more open with his interest in his emotions and things like that. And Lord John is more quiet. Yes. And then on Penelope's side, Debling is the quiet one, Colin is the loud one. So they're both making a choice between loud and quiet. Yeah. And they make the opposite, even though they're very similar introverted women. So it's like,
I think Francesca a lot more Penelope enjoys the ton. She just likes it from her little corner of she likes to be a wallflower, I think. Whereas Francesca,
she's introverted. She doesn't want to be involved in everything.
Francesca doesn't want
to watch it from the sidelines.
Francesca doesn't even want to be a wallflower. That is way
she doesn't even want to be there. She doesn't even want to be there.
She wants to be the man on the moon, just like, all right, I'll be up here, guys. Just leave me alone.
She fell in love with John when he said, I only show up if I'm socially required to.
She was like, yes, you are my people. But today,
you are my man.
But today, gentle listeners, we will leave it there and continue on next week's episode that we will be recording in 2 minutes' time. If you have anything in particular you would like us to cover, or any Bridgerton knowledge you would like to share, please head to our Facebook page, The Ladies Bridgerton. If you're enjoying our podcast, please remember to click follow on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you are listening. We are now also on YouTube. Patty has just uploaded a new video this morning, which, as of the time that this drops, was 1 week ago, so hopefully you have headed over there to watch our Miss Mojo's breakdown of the 30 most romantic Bridgerton moments and our feelings on them. A lot of them are dun dun dun. I feel like we get to have an opinion on what romance is.
What is romantic and what is not.
Yes, and once again, thank you for Julie being our subscriber for the month. You are amazing, our Patreon subscriber. We now have our Patreon link, which is very, very simple. It is literally patreon.com/theladiesbridgerton. If you would like to head over there, we will now add it into our Facebook page and basically wherever you can find us, so that you can find the link if you are so inclined to have access to exclusive content for a small fee. I think it's
$3 a month.
Yes. So once again, thank you. No, that's your line.
Nope.
Purple.
Wow.
Purple.
No.
Take
Once
it away,
again,
Pebble.
thank you for listening to the musings of two mad women
Yours truly, Tash the Kiwi.
and Lady Patty.